the ability to put yourself in someone else's shoes and anticipate how they might react to something. As far as AI having empathy, if that's going to happen, we're going to have to develop a new, well, not develop, we're going to have to discover new mathematical frameworks, because the ones we have now don't lead to empathy. They lead to a simulation of empathy.
Okay. And Trina, what are your thoughts on all of this as well? Because I want to bring you on this, and I apologize for send it over to Eric quickly, but please do share your thoughts on what's been expressed so far.
Yeah, actually, Eric, you said, it's basically what I would call it fake empathy. Look, here's the reality. In our own human experience, I'm sure all of us have experienced those leaders that provided what we would consider to be fake empathy, where they appeared to be empathetic about a situation, but their heart was not in alignment with their words. Right. And so, I would say, whether it is AI, and Jody mentioned this as well, regardless of whether it's AI, we are human beings and we should have empathy, because we would want people to be empathetic for us. We should give what we need. And the reality is, whether it is technology or business, which technology really is our business nowadays, we are still human beings, and we need to have compassion and care about each other. And so as I think about this question, I look at it as twofold. I look at it as the people that are creating the technology, and I think about the people that we are creating this technology for. The people that are creating the technology, they need to not only think about the customer, but also put themselves in the seat of the customer and say, how would I want to experience this? How do I meet that need? And also, in the creation of the technology, how do I work with my fellow man or fellow woman, et cetera, in a way where we can not only create something great from a technology perspective, but create the right experience in working with one another, even if we disagree. We can still disagree and have empathy, even if we don't understand. As I think about the customer side of it, I'll be very honest and frank. I have a parent that has dementia. I have been a caregiver dealing with that dynamic for several years with him. So when I think about what would I need as a caregiver to have created a better experience for me to create a better experience for him, I have to be able to sit in that caregiver seat and understand the ups and the downs of the emotion, the grief process, all of the administrative things I have to go through. But I also have to think about him as being my father, who was very strong and strong-willed man who now has lost some of that, and make sure that whatever I create does not completely remove his decision-making process, but also include him as a part of the process. The core to me is we have to meet people where they are, even if we don't agree. We have to have compassion, and we have to go back to loving people and considering people. Technology is a tool. I don't care what people say. It will never replace any of us. I've been in technology for over 25 years. I think some of you on this call maybe have been in technology longer than I have. But the reality is there's certain things that only we can do. Technology is a tool. It cannot replace a human. It may replace an action, but it will never replace the way that Jordan does the same thing, and Eric does something completely different, and Jody does something. It will never be able to replace what I call that secret sauce. You can program it, but it'll never replace it.
No, I just wanted to jump in, because how can people, like, I wanted to just quickly fire a follow-up question, which is, how can people use, AI as a tool for compassion, empathy? I'm kind of curious to hear that side of things, and what are your thoughts are on that?
Yeah, I think I would leverage it for research. I think, and again, I'm in the States, just like Jody. I'm in the United States of America, and I'm sure you all have seen what is going on in our country right now. I think we've lost the art of communicating this way, having conversations where we don't all have to agree. I think where we can leverage AI is being able to collate data and get different opinions about different things, even if we don't agree. And it takes the emotion out of it, because it's purely data, and nobody's going to probably fight with AI. Or if they do, that's their own thing. It's different versus us having a disagreement. one-on-one versus leveraging this tool to pull the data and to get different people's experiences. Look at this call. This is a global call. Joy's experience where she is right now is very different than my experience right now. I can leverage AI and say, hey, well, what's going on in Portugal right now? What's the climate like? How are people working together? How are they leveraging AI to work? What types of problems are they solving? And get that additional data, which then gives me a different perspective on the things that they care about, which may be different than the things that we're caring about right now in the States, or they could be similar.
So it's very interesting how you can use that data to, Jordan, I'm going to have to go to the next question because we've got so many questions, but I wish I could hand it over to you, Jordan, but I can't. But kind of going back to you yourself, Trina, like it's very interesting how you can use AI as a tool to understand, to empathize, to understand what is going on in other parts of the world so that you can put yourself in that position, in their place, and think about what it would be like if you was there in that experience. So I think that's a really good answer in how you can use AI as a tool to be able to do that. So the next question, which is, how do leaders encourage a culture where individual contributions are valued? Now we're going to have to speed this up because we don't have much time and we've got about another 5 questions to go through. So what I'm going to do is we'll have to do very sort of like 60-second sort of answers. Try and keep them as short and precise as possible, so that we can keep things moving. So I'll hand this question over to you, Jordan, since you wanted to jump in the last question. we'll fire this one at you, and then we'll go to Jody after. So over to you, Jordan.
Yeah, so this really dovetails very well with my first answer, which had to do with culture, right? So a lot of companies, when they create culture, it's kind of unconscious, right? It's not structured. And so if you build a culture that is going to sustain and actually suffuse a company and become the culture of the company, it has to be intentional. It has to be something that you define, that is repeated, that is reinforced. And so this is something that unfortunately doesn't happen in a lot of companies, right? You have a founder, they have a particular way of doing things. But over time, as the company gets larger, you have a lot of other people that come into the company. They're not necessarily hired for the same culture, and the culture starts to dilute. And if that initial culture was from someone who really understood the customer, they understood the problem, they understood, what the solution was supposed to do, that can dilute. And then people are really there just to collect a salary, or they're just there to socialize, or something like this. So it's very key that the culture be intentional, that people are hired to reinforce the culture, and that culture, if it is going to be, about empathy and compassion and about solving customer problems, that's really the criteria that goes down into the job description. It goes into, the hiring managers. It really needs to be something that is reinforced on a daily basis, and that intentionality is really key.
What do you think, Jody, quickly? What are your thoughts on what John just said?
Did you say me?
Yes, yeah. I just said, sorry, what are your thoughts on what Jordan just said there?
Oh, I agree with Jordan. I think he did a really good job. I don't have anything to add to that. So I know we have more questions to get to. So since I don't have to add, let's keep going.
Definitely. All right. Thank you for that, Jody. What methods help incorporate real-world feedback into design and development? Elisabetta will jump on you for this one, and then Stefania as well. That face said otherwise. do you want me to get? I can give you another question if you want, Elisabetta.
Russell, did you say me? Yeah.
Yes. I did
That was so very nice. Thank you. I just try to be very, very, very brief. Okay. Well, and very practical, to be honest. I think creating continuous feedback loops with real users and stakeholders is massively important. I'd say, like at international level, we work with, we adopt agile processes, which means that, we break down development process into like smaller manageable cycle iterations, and we evaluate its phases. What is actually helpful, we can see like even meetables with companies, big corporations that we work with them for, is that also like when you have a diffused and shared leadership inside the company, which is very rare, which means that also like, ideas can come from everyone. It's really, really help, to have, real world feedback that you can put into the design of your products and processes. And when you use actually agile approach in every project that you undertake, you start with research and you need to anticipate people's needs and align then also with business goals. But as we talked about a lot regarding empathy, I think that as the essence of empathy, emotional intelligence into like the strategies of the companies is massively important also to incorporate real world feedback into design, but the real emotional intelligence. So when you are capable to acquire and share knowledge all through the companies, when you are capable to create an environment which is psychologically safe for people, but really not just because it's really fashionable to say that. And also when you're capable to have, processes that are really lean and not like just full of procedures that really like overwhelming people for nothing. And as I said, authentic and diffuse shared leadership is massively important. And inside corporations do not have that because they don't need to control people. I come from a huge corporation, so I know that what I'm talking about.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I mean, I can see my screen blowing up right now saying that we're running out of time. So I'm going to jump straight into the next question, which is how can businesses balance technical advancement with everyday needs? So Joy, we'll bring you into this. And then we'll try and get to around as many people as possible. We've got about 3 questions left. So Joy, over to you.
Sure. Well, one of the things I think that's really important right now is mental health and looking at mental health apps. And a lot of mental health apps have come in. I know I have been introduced to women's apps like Flow, that's tracking your menstrual cycle. There's things like, Headspace, the bionic reading, what I was talking about before. There's lots of apps out there for just different needs. And those have all come from people that have said, this is what I need. This is what the community is looking for. That's been, talking to stakeholders, having diversity on your teams, people coming from communities that have been usually underrepresented. And so those folks are coming in and saying, these are the things that people are asking for. There's a gap here. And when we start to address those gaps and we start to look at, well, we've always had these mainstream types of technology, but then when we bring in new and different voices, those voices will say, hey, there's a whole huge gap over here that you haven't thought about yet. So that's a really important way to bring more, all different types of advancements just for daily needs, all kinds of things.
Yeah, and when we're talking about, and also when we're talking about AI, right, in particular, when it comes to technical advancements with everyday needs, like, I mean, people use AI all the time to, solve any problems, ChatGPT, take a picture. There was one person with a use case, how they managed to fix a toilet by taking a picture and using ChatGPT to fix it, right? Which is very interesting. So, I mean, when it comes to everyday needs and using AI, I mean, AI is great because it can be used for every day as well as business, aspect. So I just kind of wanted to add to kind of like what you're saying, Joy, which is, there's many different needs. And the point is, what can, help and do those needs? You've got all the different apps, but you've also got AI, which can help with a lot of those needs too. So anyway, let's get into the next question because I've got 2 questions left and we've got about 5 minutes. So Trina, we'll hand this question on to you, which is what role does storytelling play in communicating the value of new ideas?
Alrighty. So Stefania, hopefully I'll make you proud with this answer here. Look, to me, I believe if anytime you want to express something and see the value, it has to be personal. It's got to matter to you, right? Why does it matter, right? I think we mentioned, right, the question of why. You have to speak to your audience, and you have to communicate to them in a way where it matters to them, so that not only are you just talking, but it drives them to act. So if we're going to transform and change XYZ process, and we're going to now leverage AI, we need to help people understand why and why it matters to them and what's the value to them. If you don't do that, you're going to lose people.
That's a really
They're going to
good point.
resist you.
Yeah, no, completely agree with that. Stefania, quickly, 30 seconds. Just express your thoughts on this very quickly from your side.
Okay, quickly. Storytelling takes you where data and facts cannot, and can break through people who would not remember a speech in a way that you wouldn't do. Usually through storytelling, the people are like 20 times more likely to remember things. So it's really powerful to transmit really complex ideas, the use of storytelling, because it's going to be faster, is going to be more retained in the memory, and it's going to connect emotionally. And in a moment that everything is connected through technology, the storytelling, we are going to see that is the fantastic vehicle really to transmit complex ideas and to really get, it's a bit like contradictory, right? Technology and storytelling, the technical and the emotional, but this is the way really to break through with new innovations and to make it relatable and memorable.
Okay, to add on to that really quickly, I love what both of you said. And to make sure that storytelling is diverse voices. So we hear storytelling from everybody, right? Not just one-sided. So we need to see that balance of storytelling.
And then my next question, which is, how do you measure success when evaluating the effect of new developments? So Eric will bring you into this one, and then we'll finish the last question on you, Jordan. So over to you, Eric.
Yeah, so before you start to build something, you do have to ask, why am I building this? And if it does everything that I want it to do, what would be happening in the world that's different now? And those measures will usually be, some of them won't be financial or economic. So some of them will be, well, I built a new browser, right? This is the CEO of Google did this. He was in charge of building a new browser called Chrome. He was up against the Microsoft browser that was built into their operating system. It was a very difficult thing to dislodge that. And he set himself a set of metrics that most of them were not financial. They were about, how many people downloaded it today. And you want to be really clear about a small set of metrics that define what success looks like for you. And then you just measure it. He wasn't successful for years, by the way. He was given this mission and it took him several years to get to the metrics that he set himself. So fundamentally, just ask what success looks like and how will it show up in metrics.
Yeah, like what are your KPIs? What are you aiming for? What are your goals? What is the overall mission that you want to accomplish?
Yeah, and don't restrict yourself to just the financial ones.
Gotcha.
In fact, the best ones are usually human behavioral.
And my last question, which is, in what ways can collaboration across industries expand creativity and results? So Jordan, we'll finish you on this one, and then we'll have to wrap things up.
Yeah, so creativity is something that can come when different groups with different points of view work together, right? So we've talked about, quite a few people have mentioned diversity. When you have people working across different industries, they bring different viewpoints. And so there's a lot of, cross-cultural or interdisciplinary. These different words have become very popular over the last 20 or 30 years because they lead to solutions that are more, they're more inclusive, they're more able to solve problems, and they come up with more creative and better solutions. So I'll just leave it at that.
Thank you so much, Jordan. And thank you to everyone on the panel for joining us. Make sure you follow them all on LinkedIn. Everyone is on LinkedIn here, I'm pretty sure. So if you want to connect with anyone, do search their name and connect them on LinkedIn. And that is everything from myself and from this panel. and I will see you guys very soon. I'll be back tomorrow, but in the meantime, enjoy the next panel and enjoy the rest of GatherVerse Summit 2025. See you later.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Greetings, and once again, thank you for joining us at GatherVerse Summit 2025. An extraordinary roundtable discussion that just came to a conclusion. There was so much that was expressed and unpacked, and before you know it, it's gone. And here we are at our fireside discussion, the first of GatherVerse Summit 2025, day one. Who comes to us now is Antoinette Houston, the founder, principal, and experienced architect of Salesforce, but so much more. Antoinette, we welcome you.
Thank you so much. Happy to be here, Christopher. Hello, everyone.
We're very happy to have you. GatherVerse, we're here assembled with the discussion of the voice you keep is the voice you carry.
Mm-hmm.
We talk about expression, Antoinette. We talk about the opportunity to speak,
Mm-hmm.
where we know we now live in a world where it has been this way for the ages, that there are so many entire groups of people that weren't afforded the opportunity to express as we freely, if you will, speak today.
Right.
Before we touch on that, please let us know who you are, and let's unpack that some, shall we?
Sure. So Antoinette Houston, I consider myself a tech creative. And what I mean by that is basically I have been working in the STEM space, specifically user experience, for over 20 years, not to age myself. But outside of that, or in addition to that, I'm also I work very heavily in the creative space of just arts and entertainment and media. And then for me, user experience has both a tech and creative sort of palette as well, right? So that's why I kind of label myself as that. But no, I'm very I've always been a big proponent of knowing your voice, owning your voice in whatever platform, stage, medium that I'm in, whether that be tech or art. And so again, just happy to be here, happy to have this discussion, and happy to dive in and give my perspective on some things.
What inspired you when it comes to this narrative in particular to be able to join us at the power of expression and speech?
It's important to me, you know, as I think about the mentors that I had, as I think about me as a mentor myself, I'm always looking to make sure that my voice is never muted, and that anyone that I come in contact with, whether it's someone within corporate sector or whether it's, again, if I'm doing a play or theater, you know, sort of, you know, expression, that nothing is ever muted. Like there's a genuine sort of expression, there's a genuine sort of candor, right, that is expressed. So being able to join in this conversation, it was really interesting because you and I hadn't spoke about what the conversation was going to be about, and so I just felt like it was just a true alignment of just things like coming together. So again, just happy to be here, happy to give my perspective, and happy to see where the conversation takes us. Right?
Yeah, let's take it there. Let's kind of go off the planet for a moment. You know, I think about at a time where we're talking to machines more than we have ever before. And I think about that there's a new race, if you will, that has entered the narrative and discussions, a new race that's capable of in concatenative and parametric synthesis when it comes to artificially intelligent speech audience.
Sure.
And when I think about the preservation and the need to be able to extend human communication and peer-to-peer as we yet sit today, Jeanette, you as a musician, as a creative, as an artist, as a technologist, what have you come to appreciate with the power of expression and the voice, and why is it so important, especially down in this particular time where there are many people, as I said already before, that are living in this world now whose civil liberties, if you will, don't afford them to be able to have the opportunity to carry the mic. And so when we have that mic, what is it that we're carrying in terms of the responsibility and the opportunity?
I think the responsibility is one, we have to make sure that we're very clear as to how we're defining what our voice is, right? And being able to then recognize said voice. So I feel as though it comes from the baggage that we carry through our experiences. But let me just explain baggage, right? 'Cause I think sometimes baggage gets a
Yeah,
bad rap. It's not. It's
that took a heavy turn.
not right, right. But and here's the thing, like that baggage is not necessarily negative, right? Soon as we come into this world, right? As we
Sure.
grow, as we get older, as we experience, baggage is going to come with us in terms of the experiences that we are a part of, right? This could be good baggage, right? We are who we are when we are. So I feel like when to know your voice means that you have to be able to, if I'm coming into a space, if I'm coming into a space, again, whether that's a corporate boardroom or whether that's a theater stage, I'm coming with everything that I've experienced up until that point. And I'm trying to hopefully express it in a way that's genuine and authentic, right? The panel before this spoke about storytelling, right? And the value of being able to express. And a lot of times, even if I don't necessarily leave that situation with knowing all the facts that were expressed, I'm probably going to leave with a feeling, right? A feeling to do some sort of action.
Right.
That's so when you talk about the true voice, I think about all the baggage that I'm coming in with, right? Good, bad, indifferent. I'm coming into it pure so that I know that however I'm expressing, whether that's vocally, whether that's via art, whatever the medium, is fine, but I'm coming into it with a very genuine sort of um, presentation of myself and whatever information that I'm bringing to the table. So it's really important, right? Because we all should be very, for lack of better phrases, unapologetic, right? About who we are and what we stand for. And that means that not everyone may be in our circle, and that's okay. So that's why I just kind of wanted to define baggage, because I hear a lot of times when people hear that, they think it's like, oh, woe is me. No, we all have to understand that our experiences may be different or they may be similar, but let's just talk about it and let's be honest and authentic with that conversation.
And I think that, and thank you for sharing that, because I think
Yeah.
it really, and I know that it lends to the importance, right? The inherent importance of you use the word authenticity,
Sure.
of carrying our authentic expression because of the inherent culture that we have.
Mhm.
Why would we want to represent anything else but who it is
Yeah.
that we've come to be and what we've collected along the way to be able to share with others so that we can equally contribute to a narrative and biodiversity? We talk about
Absolutely.
sharing space, right? But
Mhm.
do we want to be appear in homogeneity when it comes to the evolution of scalability itself? And so I think that carrying that authentic voice, if you will, allows us, it enables not empowerment for our own expression, but moreover for the benefit of others to be able to partake of and just to be able to share just a little bit of our experiences and the cultural centricity that we have inherited really since birth. What are your thoughts on that?
And that plus one that, but then being comfortable with that, right? I mean, a lot of times, and I'm sure you've probably heard it in your experience, but just that phrase imposter syndrome, right?
Sure.
There's so many different spaces that I know people that I know have walked into, even myself earlier on in my career, of like, do I belong here? And I think that no one can answer questions like that but ourselves. So there's a level of comfortability that I think that we all have to have when we are expressing, when we are voicing, right? Because when that happens, right? Not if, when that happens, no one else can defute that. If I'm living in my truth, right?
Sure.
If I'm living in even if the environment is different, right? I'll give you an example. I've worked in corporate for since I started my career. I've always worked in corporate America. And there's certain spaces in corporate where initially it was like, okay, do I want to speak up? Whatever that speak up may be. It may be speaking up in a meeting, or it just may be a particular presentation or something that I'm providing to a client. But it's like, do I want to speak up for what is right in this situation?
Yeah.
How does that look?
Right.
Am I in a point where my voice is does it have the right authority, right? To even, right? Because if you're talking about something and you don't have the authority to talk about it, then it's like, well, what do we do? You're going to lose your audience. You're going to lose any sort of credibility you have. But if I have the authority, if I have the years of experience, right, but also have my own like opinion and my own, again, baggage that I brought to the table, right, my own experiences and degrees and all of these things, right, a lot of times we mute ourselves. Is what I'm trying to say. So when you talk about that imposter syndrome, a lot of times we come in because of fear, because we're not comfortable, because of uncertainty, because I can't lose this job, because whatever, right? And so if we keep doing that, we as in society, if we keep doing that, I feel like, especially with AI and all these things, we're going to eventually find ourselves in a very uncomfortable situation that we're not going to be mentally, you're not going to be able to get out of. So I've always been a proponent of speak your truth, right? Be knowledgeable, understand the environment that you're in, but speak your truth and never let anyone mute your voice, including yourself.
And feel comfortable doing it, right? Because you mentioned the sense of belonging, right? I mean, we quell the fire of expression because oftentimes we find ourselves in an environment or in conditions and situations where we don't feel a sense of belonging. And when we're in that situation, it can lead to imposter syndrome. It can lead to self-limiting beliefs. And it makes us, instead of fortifying ourselves with transparency and vulnerability, we become completely resilient to the environment and not want to be open and expressing to it because we feel as if there are no people that want to inherit what it is that we have to share. I mean, who wants to share in an environment where no one wants to listen? And so to that expression, I think that's very powerful sentiments that you're conveying when we talk about the liberty and the accessibility, not external accessibility, but internal accessibility, accessing what is latent within inside to be able to share and express, to greatly contribute to the overall narrative of development. And the reality is that we find ourselves in a world where corporations, executive C-suite leadership, and those that are in public sector, they just have completely dismissed the ability for one to be able to contribute to their overall narrative simply by their presence itself of being.
I'll tell you this, my grandmother, and she's still with us. My grandmother worked for 35 years, same job. She never learned to drive. She took public transportation here in Chicago every day, rain, sleet, or snow. She was like a postal worker. Like she was just like on it, but she worked in STEM, right? And then eventually she ended up getting pushed out, right? Because I mean, technology was changing. The level and age of people that were coming into her job was changing. She was ready to retire anyway. It was what it was. But growing up, seeing that, I learned perseverance, right? I learned fortitude. I learned resilience, but I also learned that's not my path. By the time I came up, 17, 18 years old, trying to figure it out, I was like, I don't even see myself at the same job for 35 years, 30 years, 20 years, 2 years maybe, because the landscape had changed. So now my true voice was pushing me in a different direction. I'm hearing all of these things from her, from my family, right? Do this, do that, because that's what they know, right? That's the baggage that they brought in. That's the experiences that they brought in. That's all they know. They're teaching that to me. I'm listening, I'm learning, but I'm also reframing what it means for me to have my true and genuine, voice and just position in this world. So it was totally different. And that shocked my grandmother. And so me living with her and she's seeing how I'm navigating this world, navigating this STEM space, navigating corporate America as a woman, as an African-American woman, it was difficult for her to see variance in that. But it's beauty in the variance, right? It's beauty in knowing this may be different, but it's genuine to me and it feels good to me, right? So I feel like true voice is probably the cousin to the gut. We know when something is not right. If we really are listening to ourselves, as you said, internally, we know, ooh, right? That's why people practice yoga and meditation and all these things, right? To get alignment with themselves. What if we actually stepped into these corporate spaces, stepped into spaces where we are being unapologetically ourselves and knowing that I'm in alignment, even if you don't agree with me, that's fine. Right? Even if this shrinkens my friend circle. That's fine. Even if I leave this job, even if I get laid off, even if I quit, whatever the path, I'm okay with. People like that are dangerous in the best way to me because you can't break them.
That's right.
They are who they are.
I think there's a certain courage and inherent courage to be able to go to a path and exercise your autonomy and not have fidelity to a thing you think that you need fidelity to in order to sustain. For me,
Yes.
spiritually, if I believe what I say I believe, then I'll be fine regardless. I'll be just all right. And being able to detach from this thing that thinks that I have to have it, and to realize that I don't have. There's only a few things in life I feel like that I have to have.
Yeah.
And the majority of, I think sometimes we find ourselves in situations where people will project that you need, that I have to have it, but detach from that thing and to find and express liberty of being able to carry our voice forward. I think it's just a powerful exercise. Please finalize.
No, and I was gonna say that's because that's all they know. Have you ever had family or friends or even managers, right, colleagues that express a certain path for you, right?
Sure,
Christopher, you should X, Y, and Z, right? I know I've heard it. And some of those things, when I've heard along the way, they totally didn't align with, I'm like, that's not what I want to do, right? And so now it's like, am I going to be genuine enough and honest enough with that person or with those people to say, I hear you, I thank you, but that's okay, or not? And even if I do that, am I okay with still saying even all the things that I'm hearing, if they don't 100% align with what I feel is really whatever that path is, being okay with that too. I'm so okay with being uncomfortable. I'm so okay with change. I'm so okay with who I am, regardless of what happens. That didn't happen today. That happened through the course of living and learning and growing and pivoting and shifting and realizing that trust is a hell of a drug. And I'm all for it because I know that I trust myself. I know that I believe in God. Even if you don't, I believe in something bigger than myself, right? And if I believe in whatever that thing is, I believe in that, in the strength of humanity, in the strength of my alignment. And so as long as I'm walking in that, if I'm at a job 20 years or 2 days, it's okay with my soul. If I have a huge friend group or just one bestie, that's fine as well, right? Because I know and I feel that that's just what my alignment brings. I think that's what true voice is. I think as we talk about true, we have to put the words authentic in. We have to put the words genuine in. We have to put the words trust in. And when you do that, I don't know about you, but it feels good with me. Like whatever option, whatever step, whatever path, it's going to be okay.
My 2 takeaways from what we're sitting here, because as quick as it came, as quick as it goes.
I know.
1, everyone has a role to play and they must be allowed to play them. 2, people will project their fears onto you of what they can't do. And just because they can't do it doesn't mean that we can't. So I appreciate what you just broke down with us, Antoinette. I hope that we're afforded to be able to have you again with us at GatherVerse, to be able to assemble with us. You're doing incredible things. Audience, follow this woman, this leader, and what she's doing. Break it down with her, connect with her on LinkedIn, dial in, and break that bread. And so we really appreciate you joining us with us, Antoinette.
I really appreciate. If I could just say one other thing for like 15 seconds. This is something that I always like to leave with, if it's okay.
Yeah.
I am a fraction of we, but that she be me, and I'm beautiful. The black on my back reflects how suitable. See, understand we got to stand for our style, man. Forget the norm. Why conform? Just profile, man. You see, these words are a gift. I still smell the newness. And the pride that's inside, I celebrate. You knew this. But for those who clueless, please, all you got to do is keep being the wonderful, beautiful, incomparable you. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you so much for this platform. Thank you so much, GatherVerse, for just the conversations that you bring on a global level. This is amazing. And I am grateful for this opportunity. I appreciate it.
Shout out to Antoinette Houston, GatherVerse, prepare for the next roundtable. Our gather was well, may our gather be well.
Take care. Bye.
Greetings, everyone, and how are you? That was so powerful. Can you just agree that was powerful, whatever has been shared for the last panel and the previous fireside chat? That was powerful. Thank you so much, Christopher. Thank you, Antoinette. And with me here is our second roundtable panel for GatherVerse Summit 2025, and it is titled Adaptive Leadership, Embracing Innovation in Uncertain Times. I am not alone. I have a roster of expert leaders who are going to help us demystify this amazing discussion. Panelists, I ask you to mute your mics unless when you're speaking, and kindly introduce yourselves briefly, as brief as you can, and we will start with you, Anne. Kindly introduce yourself, and we will go all the way and conclude with Jamie. And the mic is yours.
Thank you so much. Good day, everybody. My name is Anne-Marie Naga, and I'm the founder of CyberShare Inc., which is a digital literacy platform. In the face of, where technology is moving really quick, I take a beat and teach people how to use the technologies that are existing. And then I am a SOC leader, which is a Security Operations Center by trade. So nice to meet you all, and I'm excited for this.
Thank you. We're happy to have you. Grant, over to you.
Yes, thank you very much. My name is Grant McGaw. I am the CEO of 5-Star BDM, that stands for Brand Development Master. I'm a world-class podcaster for the last 4 years. I specialize in personal branding, business development, as well as investment banking for small and mid-sized businesses and entrepreneurs to help them to elevate and scale to the highest level.
We greet you, Grant. Thank you for joining us. Bay, happy to see you again. The mic is yours.
Hi, Ling. Hi, everyone. Nice to meet you. My name is Bei Wang. I'm from the Netherlands. I'm a serial entrepreneur and a media and communication consultant. But at this moment, I really want to focus and emphasize my identity as a teacher. My latest teaching project is I have developed a course offered here in the Netherlands, but also to France. It's called Tech for Good. And very excited to share the roundtable with you guys.
Wow, we're happy to have you. Liu, over to you.
That would be me. My name is Hai Hao. My background is in science and research. I consider myself first and foremost a scientist and educator. I conducted research in AI at MIT and pursued a Master of Education at Harvard. And so I'm, wearing those hats as well as a budding entrepreneur, I guess you could say. I am working on a startup where the idea is to take some of the research I did and the things I learned about education and to kind of radically transform how students will learn given the power of AI. And I'm excited to have a chat with everyone.
Thank you for joining us. We're happy to have you. Naja.
Hi, Len. Good to see you again. Thank you, GatherVerse and Christopher, for yet another amazing event. My name is Natja Beste. I'm the co-founder of Adlunum. We operate in the Web3 space. You're at the intersection of institutional funding and emerging, innovation in the emerging tech space. And I have a background in psychology and sociology. So that, in this kind of tech world that we live in really translates into a lot of market psychology for understanding what is going on, I guess, in this crazy time that we live in. So very, very excited to be talking about this topic today. At Lunam is a Web3 investment ecosystem. So we have an accelerator for early stage startups. We have various media brands. We have a token sale platform, which is the Web3 equivalent of, a platform on which you would do an IPO. So various different aspects of both Web3 and tech, I think will be very pertinent in this discussion today. Looking forward to an amazing conversation with everyone.
Always happy to have you. Camila, over to you.
Hey everyone, my name is Camille Sanders. I am a global strategist and ecosystem builder and CEO of Greater Than Equal. I work at the intersection of sustainability, technology, and equity, and I help leaders manage and engage external and internal stakeholders so that they can drive systemic change. I'm very excited to be here in this conversation.
We're happy to have you. Jamie.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Jamie Dameron Larson. Excuse me. I am a keynote speaker and professional coach and adversity specialist. And what I help my clients and my audiences do is understand the power of adversity and loss and uncertain times to take the power from those moments and bring them into our leadership, because I think they're very personal. And a lot of times people leave a lot of power on the table and then go into their professional lives. And I help people mesh those together. And I'm very happy to be here to talk about adaptive leadership. So thank you for having me.
We're happy to have you as well. And my name is Ling Gitao, Communications Director for GatherVerse, and we're very, very happy to have you here. Our dear audience, kindly feel free to engage with this discussion. Dear panelists, can you get started? Shall we start? Okay. And I'm going to draw this to you, Jamie, since you talked about power in uncertainty. This is the best for you. What does adaptive leadership mean to you in a rapidly changing world? And anyone can chime in on that as well.
Thank you. I think the first thing to understand about adaptive leadership, and the first part of it, is to understand that there will always be something that we're adapting to. And there's uncertainty around positive things, and there's uncertainty around things that scare us. So as leaders, before we even get into the adaptive part of life, find out what's not adaptive about you as a leader. Every leader needs a North Star, and we need things that we understand that we are steeped in, that we know will not change, and how we move forward and how we treat others and the basis of what our leadership is. That way, we will be better informed on how to adapt to other things. We will also be more prepared to help our teams adapt to whatever new challenge is coming down the road for us, and understand that it's a constant battle. I know that people love their quiet times and they're like, okay, good, and enjoy those, but understand that you get prepared then for whatever that next challenge is. So our North Star informs our adaptation.
Yeah, that is a very, very powerful sentiment when you just mentioned that on the importance of reflecting as leaders. It comes with a reflection, and that there's uncertainty in the positive changes and there's uncertainty in the negative changes, which leads me to a very, very important question here on flexibility and open-mindedness. We have evaluated ourselves as the leaders. How flexible are we and open-minded are we with the teams? And I'm bringing this to you, Naja. How do we encourage that culture of flexibility and open-mindedness in teams? And anyone can also chime in on that.
Yeah, I mean, that's a really great question. And I think there's never been a more important time for this, because flexibility and open-mindedness is literally no longer an option. The rapid pace at which the world is changing, and, we've been throwing the word change around and change management. And if you're on, strategic consulting, you make a living out of it. That's been doing the rounds for a really long time. But now when we are talking about change, we are talking about we literally might not recognize the world that we live in, the society that we live in, and the humans that we live with in just a couple of years. I mean, if you keep up to date with how technology is developing in every single area, it's insane the rate of innovation that's out there. yes, it's not hit the market yet. And I mean, we can go, you're going to have an entire panel discussion about, what are these obstacles to bringing about this either utopian or dystopian future. But I think the key to recognizing that flexibility is not optional is then to understand that it's actually not so complex. It's a brain muscle. It's the more you exercise any muscle, the easier it gets. And I mean, this is really what life is all about. So I always say, because for me, I mean, I think change, I flourish in change. I think I have an unfair advantage, but it's also because I was forged in the fires of change, right? It's because I extracted the gold from it. And I also say that our team is lucky because we operate in a space where if you can't be flexible, you can't be in that industry. But this is not to say that the team that we have were already native to the industry before they started with us. It's really just a case of exercising that muscle and understanding that it's non-negotiable. And then I think really it's a career thing, but the career aspect reflects the fact that right now, if you want to have any semblance of stability, I think stability, because we are also redefining what stability means. 6 months, 1 year from now, you need to make it a personal goal to understand that now is the time to investigate what is going on. What do you need to know? What do you not need to know? So I hope that answered the question. Thanks, Lynn.
Yes, that was a powerful expression, and I love the analogy of flexibility with our muscles. They are the only way to become flexible, even our own physical bodies, is exercise. So if we continue exercising that flexibility, I think that's how it becomes easier. Camilla, do you want to add something to this, or do I pass the next question to you?
I can do maybe both, all the above. So I love what the other speakers are saying, and I talk a lot about strategy, and one of the things that you have to understand when we're talking about flexibility and open-mindedness is a lot of times people want to be so rigid when it comes to leadership. They just want to do one style, they do their strategy, and they want to follow it to a T. But when you're building your strategy, like one speaker said, you're setting a foundation of your vision, your mission, your goals. It's a foundation, it's a backbone for you to go back and refer to, but you're always flexible when you're executing, right? Because the only thing that strategy is going to do is as you're executing, if you're not doing something right or something doesn't turn out as you expect, okay, go back, make sure you're aligning with your mission and your vision and your foundation and your core values. But then move and do something different, do a different tactic. So don't be so rigid that you have to do this specific thing, but do have that foundation. And I would go back to also saying, to answer this question, adjusting your strategy, it is a muscle and it is something that you change on a regular basis. Like I will be in a meeting because I facilitate a lot of projects, and I know different people have different perspectives. They have different ways that they like to work. And so you may be in a meeting and you may be managing a lot of different people or leading a lot of different people, and you have to be aware that you're going to have to adjust on the fly. Like whether it's I do like events or whether it's just in a meeting and you have a certain outcome, you're getting people to a certain vision, you have to adjust to people based on who's in the room, and you may not know who's in the room. So it's going to change every single time. You're going to let this conflict happen, right? And get through this conflict and have to adjust for that, but also make space for that and not be so rigid. So I can't even say that it's as a leader that it's one pinpoint thing or situation. It's you're constantly adapting, like every day, every situation, whether it's a conversation on the phone or it's a meeting or it's a larger project.
Yes, that is very powerful. We're constantly adjusting every time, and I couldn't agree more than that. And I just want to even draw back to an example that I myself have experienced here in Africa. It's not even just about the tech industry, but generally the world is changing. And some years back, I remember I couldn't have even internet, accessing internet itself, me being on this meeting some years back, maybe 5 years ago, not even 5, 3 years ago, getting access to Wi-Fi for me was a challenge. But right now I'm seeing even 5G. And this is Africa. Now you can imagine the whole part of the world. And there's still some places that are catching up to this. But the overall theme I'm seeing here is change is constant. It happens every day, every minute, every second. And I want to bring this to you. Hi, how? What methods help leaders stay informed about emerging technologies? Please share what you have, and anyone can chime in on that as well.
Yeah, thank you, Lynn. I think this is a particularly apt question for me. Working especially in the AI space, right? I'm sure you've all, even if you don't work closely with AI, you've kind of had this experience where you're just overwhelmed with the sheer rate of new AI models and in the news and so especially in my experience, right, talking and working with teachers, a lot of them feel this way, right? They're like, oh, I want to include AI, in my classroom or in my curriculum, but I just don't know where to start. It's just so overwhelming, right? And so I definitely feel that, right? Even as someone who tries my best to keep up, it can definitely get overwhelming. And so I think an important way, right, is to follow sort of the thought leaders in the field, right? So I do that mostly through LinkedIn. I found that we say a lot about the algorithm, but sometimes it does work, right? So I tend to see like the latest developments, right, like pretty high up on my feed, and I'm fairly up to date in that way. There are also sort of these newsletters or on Substack. For those that don't know, Substack has kind of become the how would you put it, like an online platform for all these people to share ideas and stuff. And so it's like a much more civil Twitter, I guess, where people can actually share ideas in long form. And there are a lot of educators that I follow who write about some of these latest tools. And so I think these kinds of principles can apply more generally, right? With obviously AI is the big thing now, and I work in education, but for sort of any field and any emerging technology, those would be kind of how I do it. But I want to kind of talk about a little bit less sort of concretely, like with these practical things, but just sort of the other thing about AI in particular is that with the rate of development, right, I think it's difficult to keep up if you don't have a sort of some level of foundational understanding. And what I mean by that is, with AI, I personally believe everyone should have some level of understanding of like, what is a neural network, right? What does it mean when they say, oh, this model has, this many more parameters, or like it used this much less to, like, I'm thinking about DeepSeek, right? It was in the news, like, it costs this much less compute. Like, what is compute, right? And again, I'm using AI as an example, but, with any sort of emerging trends and technology, it would serve you well to have a sort of solid foundation so that as these, developments, come out in the news, you have a sort of conceptual framework or context of what it is, rather than just, having these headlines being thrown at you. So those are some of my thoughts.
I totally agree on that, having a basic foundation. And I'm going to come to you on that because there's a very big challenge there. How do we get everyone to get this basic foundation? But before I come to you, I want to pass this to you, Bay. And before that, Wish is here. Kindly introduce yourself and then we'll come over to you, Bay.
So is Wish going? Yeah, Wish, go ahead.
Yeah.
Sorry for being late, guys. I had something come up and couldn't get out until now. I'm Wish. I'm the founder of Renaissance Analytics and the creator of Spark, an AI system that helps you turn your ideas into businesses and grow your business. Glad to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. We're happy to have you here. So, Bay, how do you balance risk with the pursuit of new ideas?
I want to connect this question also linked to what how just talked about how we are facing in the education world, because as the teachers that we feel like all the students, younger generation, should have access to the to knowledge, and to also to have the tool to empower them to access to knowledge. But I think with the current trend, we are actually putting more emphasis on, instead of just like using AI, but also kind of further nurture the critical thinking. Because I think at this moment, we kind of like see there's a lot of shift, power dynamics, but also like the traditional business models, they are kind of shift towards a new kind of direction. And this is something that we are kind of now at school, we said, okay, if we want to nurture new ideas, it's not about, you know, what is the new like a business model, or there is a design thinking tool we're using, but we are going back to the roots about being critical about datas. Because currently, I think all around the world, young generation likes to use like a large languages model like ChatGPT and with DeepSeek. But we are starting to get really worried about, because there is a major bias and there's also unbalanced existing data. So we're kind of like go back to the roots and starting to be critical about, okay, do you have the skill of collecting the quality data? Because, you know, if we look at the modern science, it's based on the available information and knowledge in the last hundreds of years. But what there are a lot of parts of the world, information is not available there. I think in the natural science, if you ask what is the deepest part of this ocean, what is the temperature there, I think you still need research on that. And what if you ask also some like really indigenous culture, and we all know there's a major bias of like lack of data on that. So that's why we're going back to the roots about, okay, I think for innovation, it's we can see technology as a tool, but we want to emphasize that technology is a means to an end, but it's not the end goal itself. Because we really want to bring back the human part, but also looking at all the living beings on the planet. Because currently there is quite some an unbalanced discussion that there are more models about sustainability than the real action taking on sustainability. I'm based in Europe, and there are a lot of business models. There's all kind of new models, but there's too much theory. But there is a lack of really like hands-on nitty-gritty things. And the students, they are starting to get really lazy if they say, okay, we just get data through ChatGPT. But we said, no, stop using it and go to the places, work on no data scenario, lack of data, or like how do you get to the quality of raw data? So
okay,
I think
but I'm gonna come to you, and those are very powerful sentiments that you mentioned there. And I just want to pass this on to Grant, and then we'll come back to you. There's something I want to find out more on what you're doing with students. And Grant, bringing this to you, what role does clear communications? You're a media personality, and what role does clear communication play in times of uncertainty? Bring the media aspect of this as well.
I think this is very important to understand power dynamics on a world stage, right? Let's just talk about Earth power dynamics. Power dynamics in this world is really, most of us controlled economically. Then it's by government. And then what people don't realize, the third component of that is communication, even beyond military, right? So when you understand communication, and I've been in telecommunications over 25 plus years, the ability to influence large groups of people in a moment's notice is powerful. So when you go back to what was just previously discussed around these LLMs, who controls them, how they are programmed, this is a powerful consideration, right? Because just like in our own world, even before LLM, just talk about the basic newspaper, who controlled that, and then what's the difference between propaganda and just everyday news, right? So we start looking at the world of, we call it network television, network TV, your NBC News, your ABC News, your CNN. If they're not giving you what you would call unbiased information, it becomes very skewed. But then who owns these organizations? So you get out of the world of just what AI is doing. Look at what humans do to each other, and what is their end goal by doing that, right? We need to understand the power that we have. This is the most unprecedented power that we do have right now on this platform that we're on. We did not have this capability 5, 10, 15 years ago to come together as a world community and have real world discussion. Once you have a momentum of people, they say, no, I am free to speak my truth. Just like what Ms. Houston said earlier, have an ability to self-define reality, right? We need to understand ourselves as human beings at a high level. Because I've been in technology for a very long time, I have a certain understanding. The human beings are really just recreating in a certain subset the world around them and utilizing it for gain one way or another. We ourselves accumulate over 1 to 2 terabits of information that we absorb as an experience on a daily basis. We are the most powerful, quote unquote, machines on the planet.
Yes, I
How do we
totally.
unleash that power? How do we begin to really express that at a mobile scale or something that is high end? It's something that we really need to contemplate. No AI engine is as powerful as the collective of the human mind or the different people. But when we know how to utilize these tools to our benefit, and this is the most ascertained time, talk about leadership and adaptive leadership. We now, as individuals, have more control over communication that we've ever had in a moment in history. I want to let that
Yes.
sink
I,
in.
I totally agree with that. This is the most important and most powerful time to express ourselves. And I kind of want to draw back to how you expressed the history of media and communications. And back then, when the information was only spread with the newspapers or just a telenetwork. Personally, where I come from, you could only find one person in the television station. So the person who used to control the message controlled the perspective of individuals, controlled what they think, controlled how they saw things. But right now it's very, very powerful because it's almost like everyone is awakening to having this information and they can tell their own story. That is very, very powerful. And Marie, I want to find out, you're a leader yourself. How can leaders encourage teams to embrace these new challenges and how can they become more adaptable? How do you see it?
Yeah, that's a great question. I actually just dealt with this right before getting onto this call, but I found that meeting people where they are definitely works. So if I want to change or embrace new technology or embrace new challenges as a leader, I need to understand the challenge. Like, what are we dealing with, and what is the capacity that we have within the team in order to deal with this challenge? And also, what is the end goal? What is the end goal of the challenge? And again, going back to what Jamie, Nadia, and Camilla said, you have a vision, you have a mission, you have a goal. If we have a challenge, is a challenge threatening our mission? Is it threatening our short-term goal? Is it our long-term goal? And also, how do I navigate this with the tools that are available to me to make sure that there's we're balancing like the work, the results, and also how do I not get my team to be overwhelmed? Because a lot of people, as much as we love change, as much as we love new technology, change is really hard. It's really hard to get through to the change. So, and also just as people, naturally, we're always asking, what's in it for me? So, within that change, what's in it for the team? Is the team expected to grow? Are there new skills that are going to be taught? Are there new skills that, things that we need to find? Do we need to go outside of ourselves? So really, kind of looking at it 360 and figuring out what is the best way for us to go without compromising the human element of everything that we're doing. And so that's how I encourage the team to embrace new challenges, talk about growth, and talk about all the good things that could happen and what's in it for them as well.
Yes, that is very, very powerful. Thinking about what's in it for the team. It's a very brilliant perspective that clicked on my mind. Which I want to bring this to you. What approaches do you think can help assess and respond to sudden industry changes? And anyone can chime in on this. If you feel you have something burning to share on this, kindly also chime in. Wish, over to you.
It's a good question. I think it really depends on the structure of the organization, really. If you're very much a lean type of startup, then adapting to change is not that big of a problem. If you're a very well-established industry or business that already has really concrete processes, change can be very difficult and very expensive. So I think really it comes down to culture of the business itself. Like, does the business itself operate from that perspective of we're always going to be adaptable? Or are they just like, this is the problem we're trying to solve, this is how we solve it, and we're just going to convince the market to work with us? That doesn't usually last very long. Those businesses go out of business. So I think that's really the key, is just having a culture of adaptability to begin with.
Yeah, Wish, I just want to follow up on something. What is a lean startup to you? Because there's so many people
Sure.
here, they're leaders, they're startup leaders who want to learn from you. Please tell us, what do you think about that?
So when I say lean startup, I don't just mean like lean in terms of resources available. That's usually a big part of it. You don't have a lot of money, so you're operating on small budgets, but also lean, you're using processes like Scrum or Agile development, where you don't have a concrete map that you're taking to get to how you're solving your problem. You just realize that you're trying to solve a particular problem, and you're not married to a specific solution on how that problem gets solved. You're just hell bent on solving that problem, and that allows you to be really flexible in how you get to that.
Yeah, like testing and then seeing what works and what doesn't, and making the necessary adjustments. That is very, very powerful. So I want to hear each and everyone's of you perspective on this, and I will start with you, Jeremy, briefly. How do you create an atmosphere of trust and experimenting with new ideas?
I think that you create the trust when you're not coming up with a new idea. I think that to try to throw it all into one place is difficult. And I think that trust is something that comes, like any other relationship, right from the beginning. And so before you try a new venture and you're going out into something, make sure that you already have the trust built in. And for your teams and for yourself to understand that when things are smooth, people trust you and you have a good cohesion in your team, then when things start to get new or choppy, that trust can hold through whatever that next challenge is. So do it in the smooth times. Create the trust before you head out to sea, is what I would say.
Yeah, that is very powerful. And what I'm getting from you is, do you mean like build the trust as earlier as you just start before even these changes come? Is that what you mean?
It really does. Yes. It goes back to, ironically, the first question that you asked me. I think that when you are talking about being a leader and you have to be someone that is trustworthy. And that doesn't mean that you're not going to have problems, but right out of the gates, if you have that and you understand that you need a sense of integrity and a sense of trust in the business that you have for yourself, that the third-party people that you work with, anybody that comes into your realm, if you have that reputation that follows that North Star of that kind of leader that you are, I think the new ideas, not only are you going to have an easier time introducing that, but other people are going to feel that integrity and be able to help you accomplish that idea. So I believe that trust is a character trait. And I think that it's a very important part of who we are as people, both personally and professionally, and to have a very honest relationship with yourself first about what kind of person you are in that sense.
Wow, that is a very, very powerful
Can I chime in on that? If you don't mind.
Please do.
I want to just a small bit, just to add in on what she just said. And as the leader, especially if you establish trust, but also empower your people. empower them to express their ideas. There's no right or wrong answers here, because we are in a very fluid world. I think we're starting to realize how fluid the world is. And to Wish's world is that, we make these models and they're in snapshots of time, but in future snapshots of time, those models they're not optimal any longer. So you have to really involve a lot of people in your ideation phase. To other people that were on the panel talking about, if you don't have enough data, you don't have all the data, you're coming up with models that aren't really optimum and holistic in point. So when you empower as many people as you can, you get better models.
I totally agree on that. And Naja or Hai Hao, yeah, please chime
Yeah,
in
I
and
just
then
also
Naja.
wanted to jump in as because I was struck, as I was listening to that, just how pretty much everything that was said also applies in an education context, right? I'm talking literally in a classroom context, right? We don't. I don't want to say we don't, but teachers aren't usually referred to as like, the leaders of an organization, but in many ways they are, right? They're the leaders of the classroom, of the students, and I think you know an important parallel here, right, is we have this power dynamic, right? We have like the manager in an organization, and then you have the teacher in a classroom, and you have the students, and what everything that was said about like trust and empowerment, I think really applies in this educational context, right? Today's theme is, right, how do we adaptive leadership in an uncertain world, right? And just as Grant said, we don't know what the future holds, right? And the same is even more true for the youngest among us, right? Like, even when we're gone, they'll still be around in a world that is unrecognizable to us. And so how do we prepare them for that? And that's sort of a big challenge for teachers right now, right? And so to go back to what Bay said, right? I think going back to some of these fundamentals, right? Like critical thinking and about knowing what's real, right? Not just taking shortcuts. I think all of these things are really important, more important than ever, to impart on our students, so that this becomes a lifelong thing for them, right? That they'll be comfortable with uncertainty. They'll be comfortable with experimenting with new ideas. So,
yeah, that is very powerful. Bay, you want to add something
like
to that?
I just name a new word, because we are now have been in our school here in the Netherlands. We're trying to co-create with the students and like a co-build, as we call it, community-driven innovation. And I think this is something also inspired by what we see globally, that you see like in the existing economies and markets, there's a lot of geopolitical elements and also power dynamic shift. But we see how people are connected, like really like a community driven, like either based on a necessity or based on certain kind of needs, or having the real defined problem and solving the real problem. So that's why we emphasize community driven innovation, try to balance out this long-term and short-term goal, balance also the mission driven and also market driven, because we want the student to really like feel also tangible developments, not just like saying, okay, we're going to have a very, very grand vision for like a long term. That's the North Star. That's very important. But at the same time, we really facilitate them to kind of get hands-on and to look at, okay, we're not going to expect 3 years build up a brand, but how are you going to survive, in the 5 or 6 months? And I think this is really giving a lot of nice stimulation, because students and the younger generation feel the ownership. And then we are actually disrupting the traditional, like, company model and things. So I think we kind of like co-write or rewrite a playbook together with younger generation. So I think this is
Totally agree with that, Bay. And when it comes to community development, it's something we really advocate for here in GatherVerse, and I'm sure you know it's one of our standards. So I really agree with that. Camilla, what do you have? What is your take here? And Naja, I'll come to you next. Camilla, please share your thoughts.
I honestly am like, I can't add anything else. I mean, I agree because, you know, you do start at the beginning, right? It is something that starts at the beginning when you're forming a team, or as early as possible, you build that trust. And as a leader, the people that you lead are going to follow your example. So you have to lead by example. If you're late, if you don't care about following through with deadlines, things like that, people are going to are going to follow how you lead. So you have to set the example. You have to build that trust, and that's how you do it, is by setting that example. And then you also have to just create that environment that's like, hey, one thing that we didn't talk about is understanding what a leader is, because a lot of times, sometimes people think a leader is someone that gives orders. Like, that's not it at all, right? A leader is someone that, yes, you have that vision, you hold that vision, but you give the people that you lead autonomy to figure out how to get to that vision. And you give the community that you lead that they're able to come as a group and come up with that vision and the way that they do it. And so when you're experimenting with new ideals, yes, there is no wrong answer, you know, that people come up with. It's their ideal. And so no matter what age, no matter what race, no matter what, making sure that everyone is heard, but then also giving them the autonomy to fail and say, hey, it's okay if you fail fast. I don't know if you ever heard that, fail fast, succeed often. You know, fail, that's fine. Let's learn from our mistakes and then try something different, you know. And then if you need additional resources as a leader, I'm here to provide those resources for you to help you learn, to help you grow, to help build that community. I think that's what it's all about, to build that trust.
Yeah, that's very profound. And thank you for defining leadership. And if I want to add, Wish just said good leaders create good leaders. Exactly. And good leaders lead by example. I do know of a quote that says everything lies and falls under leadership. Naja, what's your take on this? Please give us your thoughts.
Yeah, I just first want to observe, I love how no matter how, diverse the backgrounds of everyone on the panel, I mean, ultimately everyone kind of comes to the point of saying, oh, you know, integrity and trust and mission and values is really what it's all about. And I think that's a really, really powerful point because, you know, it's a very interesting time to be alive in that, you know, it's kind of like a curse kind of way. Sometimes there's a lot happening. And I think reality itself is becoming questionable because every person, every group, every, you know, region, whether virtual or in person, everyone has a different reality. And now we are seeing the, you know, sometimes like opposition of those realities play out in really big ways, geopolitically, economically, technologically. So there's a lot happening. And for a lot of people, and I mean, arguably for all of us, no matter how versed we think we are, it is ultimately a scary time because we have no freaking idea what's going to happen, right? But the good thing is that we are not going to do it alone. I don't know if any of you remember feeling like, what is that Will Smith movie when he was the last person in the world? I felt that way during COVID one time. And I was like, oh my God, like, this is not how I want to step into the future. I don't want to step into the future alone. I want to do it with other people. And I think ultimately that is what it all comes down to. And so then if you look at, you know, what is adaptive leadership? What is leadership? Leadership always starts with self-leadership. Leadership is always a mirror of, you know, you might think it's this person and this scenario and that situation and these dynamics, but ultimately it all points back to you. That's just how, you know, human interactions work. So it's actually really beautiful if we consider that we are all at this, you know, sort of inflection point where we don't know what tomorrow is going to bring. None of us have all the answers. So we can now actually co-creatively start and collectively start constructing new realities, but also questioning the ones that are currently being put to us. Understand, as you understand whether AI data is real or not. Also understand if your own cognitive biases are, valid or not. If your brain software needs to be updated from like earlier programs that are outdated. So yeah, it's a difficult time, but I think together it's not nearly as difficult. It's actually like a choose your own adventure book. So yeah, let's all have some fun and adventure together.
That is very powerful. I think together, that's why we called GatherVerse. We're bringing each and every one of us together to do all this pamoja. That pamoja means together in Swahili. And Marie, I want to hear your take on this before our time's closes off.
Lynn, real quick before you move on, can I add just one little piece on the leadership thing?
Yeah, please.
I think a good way to think about a leadership versus like a director or a boss is, anybody can give direction to do something, but a leaders, they do it by doing it. And then everybody else just kind of like follows them. Like, I think that's a big distinction between somebody that is able to just direct a team or guide a team versus somebody that's building something and being a leader in that process. That's it.
That's very powerful. Anne-Marie, you're the last one. Close us off. Close the whole panel. Tell us what you think.
Yeah, thank you. So everybody's comments have been really great, and honestly, I feel like there's not much to add. But just to go off Nadia's last comment, and also I know Bay and Hey How are doing education. I do really think that education is important in instilling trust, because when you know something, you're confident in it and you trust yourself to do it. And so I think educating people, there's such a thing as too much resources, but there's also educating people about the greater world, but also the world around them, right? So like I'm on the board of a nonprofit, and often people are like, oh my God, we need to do this like this. We need to do that. Like, we need to talk to this person. We need to look at what this intervention that happened in, like, let's say, somewhere in China, is that going to work here in Africa? And it's also like, trust yourself, trust your surroundings, trust what you see, learn to know that, yes, that exists, but that's also for specific to that region, but there's also something that's specific to you. And I think that giving people, like Bay was saying, like giving people the no data solution, sometimes it's really good to instill trust, because then you learn, and you also you learn a valuable lesson that gives you trust in self. And I think that as a leader and as people who love to bring people together, making sure that you're empowering your people to trust themselves. Because yes, they might trust you, but then what happens to the leader if everybody's coming to you 24/7? You're going to get worn out if they're really coming to you all the time. But so like my team is 24/7, 365. I need to make sure that at 2 a.m. when I'm asleep, they are able to make that decision, and they trust themselves to make that decision. And I will support them, whether that decision was the wrong decision or the right decision at the time. And I think that education, to sum it all up, I think that education and also, letting people go out there and explore and trust themselves is something that's really, really great, because I found that when they trust themselves, they will come to me and tell me, hey, I did this. I'm not sure if it's the right thing, but here's the lesson I learned. This is what happened. These were the results, without me having to do anything. So that is all I have to say.
And that was powerful. What you had to say was powerful. And everyone who expressed on this panel was just incredibly powerful. We could go on. I learned so much. I'm sure the audience learned so much. And maybe just let me read some few comments, and then we can close off the panel. William says media has the power to influence thinking, movement in specific directions, and our relationships with each other. Lisa says, nice gathering. Thank you. Africa VR Campus says, we are present and accounted for, streaming this in the metaverse. Someone is streaming in the metaverse. And that was very, very powerful. Our dear audience, I encourage you, please connect with these leaders, learn from them, and maybe support them. And I will gather as well for this panel. Thank you so much. Over to you, GatherVerse team. Thank you.
Oh, let me see if I can hear you. Are you okay? Now I can hear you. Hello,
You hear me?
how are you?
Awesome. Hello, Renika. I'm doing well. How are you?
I am doing well. Great day today.
Amazing. Yeah, I'm so excited to talk about you. First, let me give the audience a little bit about who you are, so they have some context. So, Renika is an executive leadership coach and talent development consultant with over 20 years in creating solutions for leaders to enhance their personal and team effectiveness. And she's the founder of Your Next Thought, which offers game-changing coaching and consulting. Did I get that right?
You did. Thank you. I also do some keynote speaking. So thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. And so I'm really excited to talk to you for a couple of reasons. One of the reasons is because I know you're a leadership expert, and as a young leader, I'm struggling with this leadership thing, and so I'm excited to hear your wisdom. And I know that your formula and framework for leadership revolves around 3 words, which are clarity, courage, and commitment.
Yeah.
And so my first question is, what do these 3 words mean to you, and how are they relevant in personal and professional?
Yeah, so I just want to double click on one of the things you said. Is you said, I'm struggling. And a lot of times we struggle because the thing that is in front of us, the way that I see it, the way that you see it, and the next person sees it is very different. And so the main thing I think is just to have clarity of really what's happening. So you talk about being a young professional. When we step into the professional arena, what's really happening? What are the games that are being played? Who are the players? What are the things that I need to do? So clarity is about cutting through all that noise, getting to the heart of what truly matters. And courage is one of those things. Everybody talks about courage, right? I was watching television the other day. I think there's a new Superman coming out. So everybody wants to be courageous. And it's kind of like vulnerability. We want to see it in other people, but it's difficult for us to see it in ourselves. And courage means different things to different people, but courage might just be learning a little bit more about something. Courage might be speaking up more about something. Courage might be actually standing in the gap for someone else. So once you really understand the game and understand what's going on, the next thing is just to have the courage. And sometimes it's simply just to ask the questions that need the answers. And then the commitment to that is doing it when it doesn't even seem like it's fun, doing it when it doesn't seem like it's fair. Because oftentimes, if we are in a situation, especially going back to what you said is, I'm struggling. A lot of times we say, hey, there's an easier way out. I'm going to do this. Or, you know what? Today's not the day. I'm going to take a rest today. And it's like you have to be on the grind every day.
Yeah, I love that. And I want to follow up on what you said. I want to give you some more context, but then also add another C, right? So for me, I think I'm struggling with just being a leader and also being in a global framework to where I'm a product of Atlanta, but based in Europe now, and having to lead people from different countries, different languages, different ages. And sometimes I just lack the confidence, I feel like. And so confidence is that 4th C that I want to kind of bring into this conversation and ask, what role does confidence play in leadership and then within your framework as well?
Oh man, confidence is king. And confidence oftentimes is like just being confident in who you are and how you got to the space that you are in today. So all of the experiences that you have, there's some of those experiences that are very similar to some of those people that you're leading in this global, universe. And then some of those experiences only you have. And so tapping into both of those, finding out what makes me unique. What do I bring to this situation that only I can bring to this situation? I mean, no one else brings this but me. And then also figuring out what am I bringing to this that other people can tap into and they can relate to. And sometimes we have to go there first and find out where there's a relationship, where there's connection with individuals before then we can show the confidence of saying, I got something that no one else has. Because if we go there first, that's where the doubt oftentimes checks in, right? Like, do I really have something that no one else has? But if you're connecting with other people, then the confidence will build for you.
So a lot of this is about connection. Yeah. And what are some strategies for developing connection with people, with teams?
So one of the things I'll say, and it's not my quote, it's actually from a group of coaches that I worked with, P-Link, and we would always say connection before content. And what that meant was, how do you connect with an individual before you jump into the content? because oftentimes we want to just jump into the work. We want to jump into the outcomes, the things that need to go. And sometimes this is simply as, especially in these virtual settings, asking someone, how are you arriving? You know, so if we came into this space today, I might be arriving really caffeinated. I might be arriving really tired from, you know, whatever. And just to know that, just to put that in the space for you to know that as the moderator, that helps. And so if you're leading a team, just to understand, what are we bringing into this space and how can we all support each other? It doesn't mean that if I didn't get enough rest last night, we're not going to get the work done. Oh, we're going to get it done.
Yeah.
It means that Renika might have to take a couple of breaks. If I'm overly caffeinated, I'm talking too much, it means I know this as a leader and I have to say, hey, Renika, do you mind yielding to someone else? I want to make sure we get all the voices in the room.
Yeah, I love that. And then like that, I'm curious about your journey. How did you get into this space of what you're doing now and doing the coaching on leadership and consulting and speaking?
Oh man, I'll go slow to go fast, but I won't go too slow. So I am a product of an HBCU. I went to Florida A&M University. And when I finished there, my dream was just not to have to go back home and work. I wanted to be actually in Atlanta. It's interesting you say that. And I worked in the biotech and pharma space for many years. I started carrying a bag as a drug rep. And then my dream was just to be a hospital rep, because that was bigger than just going in to see physicians. And I think mentorship and sponsorship is so important, because oftentimes people can see something in you that you can't see in yourself. So someone saw something in me and said, no, I think your dream should be bigger than that. And so I started in training, I led a team, and then ultimately worked for a number of biotech companies. And my last position was VP of talent development. And in that space, the beautiful thing about it was that you really got to see the light bulbs go off. So whether it was someone being in a classroom setting, I did some coaching internally, doing coaching one-on-one. The best thing in the world for me is to see people have that sort of, aha, I get it. And so for me, my journey was first sales. So I'm sort of a salesperson at heart. And then the second part of my career was in learning and development. And this last part has been outside of corporate. So what we call a solopreneur. So I took all the skills and all the learnings from working in a corporate setting to now do sort of the same thing, but I get to do it in different organizations. So I get to peek inside different industries to coach, to facilitate, and to do some keynote speaking.
Yeah, I love that. And so I'm curious, you were in talent development. So there's often a conversation around if leaders are born or if leaders can be created.
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
I think it's a little bit of both, you know, and so I have two sons, and I've always believed that young men need to be involved in something. You got to be in a chess club, you got to play golf, you got to play you have to do some sort of activity. And so both of my kids played sports. And even at a young age, you could just see different kids that were just leaders. You know, the team is down by X number of points. That's the kid you throw the ball to. You know, the kid that brings everybody together in the huddle and says, this is what we're going to do. So in my opinion, I think you can be born a leader. I think also it may have to do with the pecking order in your family. You know, if you're the oldest, you came out probably being a leader. If you're the youngest, you might have more leadership qualities because you got to watch the others in your family. So I think there are different dynamics that cause people to be born that way. But I also think that, again, that's why I talk about mentorship and sponsorship. I also think that, you know, you can read the books, you can study people, because a lot about being a leader is actually sitting and watching and studying people and figuring out how to motivate individuals, how to get people to come together and collaborate. So I think those skill sets can be learned, but I also think in some ways it's just, some people are just born leaders. They just are.
Yeah, I love it. And then within your story, can you talk about a moment where you've had to show courage and commitment during a difficult time?
Oh man. So I'll tell you a time where I really had to show a lot of courage, and for me it was actually stepping outside of my corporate role. You know, I know it may sound like a small thing for a lot of people, but the first person I called and told them that I was leaving my corporate job, they said, "What, Miss Corporate America?" Because I loved everything about corporate. I loved again, the collaboration with people, the ability to grow my career, all of those things. And I had put on my calendar, we ready, we looking, we out. And I knew that the industry was changing. I knew the leadership within the organization was changing. And that's okay. That's what I tell people, is that it's okay if your values and the values of the organization don't align. That will happen. You'll have new leaders come in, things will change. The question is, what are you going to do about it? And so it took a lot of courage, one, for me to put those things on my calendar. And I literally started from my birthday to another holiday to actually December 30th of that, or 31st of that year. And by that year, I was gone. And so the courage was, what do I do next? But I also say, if you're thinking about what's next in your life, you have to set some things up. So I'd set up some things. I had gone back to do some executive coaching, done some, some speaking, facilitation, that kind of thing. So I knew what I wanted to do, but I really didn't know what I wanted to do. And that's where the courage comes in to say, and I have a grandmother that did a lot of raising of me, and she used to say, you just got to have faith of the size of a mustard seed. And that sounds good. So you look at the size of a mustard seed, and then you have to have that kind of faith. Then you're like, ah. So it was really just the faith to just step out and say, I believe I'm going to bet on myself this time. I'm going to see if I can do it, and I'm going to bet on myself. Yeah. So that would be it.
Amazing. So we have about 2 minutes left. And so I want to ask you this. Actually, this final question is, and that's just what is a piece of advice or insight that you would give to a leader, already someone who's leading, and also an aspiring leader, about having and creating clarity, courage, and commitment to excel, in their purpose in their career?
Yeah, I'd say the first thing is to be very clear about who you are. So most people, if you ask them, what are your top values? Most people have no idea. So I would tell people to go out, do some research, figure out what are your top values, whether you do different type of assessment or whatever. So you got to be clear on what your values are. Be very clear around how your values align or don't align with others on the team. And it's okay if the values might be different, but we have to at least understand that, and understand that here's the larger value of the organization, here's where we are, and here's our North Star. So that'd be the first thing I say to any leader. And then for the new leaders, I would say, you got to commit to always having this growth mindset. And it sounds so cliche, but it's true. Trying to learn about the people on your team, trying to learn about the industry, trying to learn about the business. And then the last thing I would say is, just commit to it. I told you I have 2 sons. People want instant gratification now. Yeah. And so a lot of people don't want to think about what their career is going to be like in 10 years or 15 years. But if you keep living, it's going to be there in 10 or 15 years. So be committed to what you want to do today, but also think about the long term around what are some of the things you want to accomplish.
Amazing. Well, unfortunately, we are out of time, Renika, but I appreciate you. I appreciate your insights and your wisdom here. Shout out to GatherVerse and the entire team for putting this together and allowing us to come on and chat for a little bit. So enjoy the rest of the summit, and may our gather be well.
Yeah, thank you so much. It was my pleasure. Bye-bye.
Greetings and welcome to another roundtable discussion on day one, GatherVerse Summit 2025. I'll be your moderator today, Christopher Lafayette, founder of GatherVerse, emerging technologist. We're so happy to have all of you that are still with us here today at GatherVerse.live. It's been a rather invigorating fireside and panel discussions today, wherever you may find yourself around the world. There's been much expressed and much carried. Today, we've assembled a roundtable for this particular discussion of professionals who really will have a lot to unpack on the discussion of humanity first, placing people at the heart of technology. It's never been more of an important time now than ever for us to take into consideration of humanity with the extension of human expression itself with artificial intelligence and other emerging technologies, to be mindful, if you will. And we've assembled these leaders to help us navigate, if you will, along the way, to cross the river of understanding of where we might find ourselves today. Roundtable panelists, we certainly greet and welcome you. I'm going to call on each of you to briefly, if you will, express who you are and why you've decided to join this panel today. And we'll make our remarks as brief as possible so that we can move on and get to the business of things. And we'll start with you, Alita, please.
Hi, my name is Alita Lindahl. I am a conscious leadership development consultant. Very passionate on this topic of technology and AI and leadership and where we're taking it moving forward into the future. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Alita. We're happy to have you here. Dr. Mansi, please.
Hi, I'm Dr. Lolly Mansi. I'm beaming in from Dublin, Ireland. I'm a futurist and innovator in this space. And I'm here because the future isn't yet written. So everything we're doing at the moment is going to lean into the choices we make and the kind of life that we live. So it's all to play for right now.
That was a lot. Dr. Mansi, we're happy to have you here. Christy, please.
Hey, everybody. I'm here because I am a leading voice in highly emotionally intelligent leadership. So I show corporate leaders how to create winning teams and cultures of belonging in a world that too often prioritizes systems over people.
Thank you so much, Christy. And Joshua.
Hey, everyone. I'm Joshua Johnson, Chief Technical Officer for Tree Industries. We're an emerging technology company that specializes in artificial intelligence. Really been in the space for about the last 7 years. And our big focus is on accessibility, accountability, equity, and open source. So hopefully I get a chance to maybe expand on some of that today. Thank you.
We're huge fans of accessibility here at GatherVerse, that's our second standard. Joshua, we greet you. And Maria, welcome back.
Hi, hey. I'm Maria Dervenko. I'm the CEO of Volhel, and I'm operating at the intersection of AI, blockchain, and digital transformation, just making sure that I turn ambitious ideas into real scalable businesses. And I'm happy to be here today to discuss and share insights on how we can shape the future to be more innovative and not just innovative, but to put humans first. Thanks.
Yes, of course. Well expressed, well met. And lastly, Russell, welcome back.
Hey, Christopher, and thank you for having me once again. Those of you who don't know me, my name is Russell Bundy. I am the founder of Just Verify, and pretty much at Just Verify, our mission is to create a verified digital world where trust, transparency, and authenticity across AI systems, digital content, and all digital interactions. And basically, we're dedicated to ensuring that technology advances and does so responsibly and ethically for both organizations and individuals. And also, my role is at Director of Partnerships at GatherVerse too, where I handle all the partnerships, all the relationships, and everything else that goes on with GatherVerse, pretty much, brother. So happy to be here.
We're happy to have you here, Russell, and thank you for your service with GatherVerse. Shall we begin, panelists? I want to put a little bit of context to this first question of how can people remain the central focus of technology development? We find ourselves at an unprecedented time of scalability. We see that in many ways that our world has changed overnight. As it was expressed and to earlier sentiments, what happened when it comes to technology, what happens when